The kitchen smelled of cinnamon and old wood, a scent that clung to the walls of the house like a memory. Eleanor sat at the table, her hands tracing the grooves of the oak, each not a story from the decades she'd spent here. At 72, her fingers were still steady, though they trembled slightly when she thought of the words that had cut her just days ago. You're not real family, Eleanor. You're just here. Her daughter-in-law, Claire, had said it with a smile, as if it were a casual observation, not a blade. Eleanor's heart had stuttered, but she'd kept her face calm, her eyes fixed on the coffee mug in her hands. She'd learned long ago that silence was sometimes the loudest response. This house, with its creaking floors and chipped paint, was more than a home. It was her life's work, her sanctuary, her legacy. She and her late husband, Thomas, had built it from nothing, pouring their savings, their sweat, and their dreams into every brick. When their son, Michael, was born, the house became his playground, his shelter. And when Michael married Claire, Eleanor had opened her doors to her, hoping to share that warmth. But Claire's words had turned that warmth to ash. Eleanor leaned back in her chair, her gaze drifting to the framed photo on the wall, faded image of her, Thomas, and a young Michael, laughing in the backyard. She could still hear Thomas's voice, low and steady, promising her they'd grow old here together. He hadn't made it to 70, felled by a heart attack 10 years ago, but Eleanor had kept the house alive, tending to it like a living thing. She'd never imagined it would become a battleground. The trouble started 6 months ago when Michael and Claire moved in. They'd fallen on hard times. Michael's construction business had taken a hit, and Claire's freelance graphic design work wasn't steady. Eleanor had offered them the house without hesitation. It's your home too, she'd said, meaning every word. She moved into the small guest room, giving them the master suite, and tried to make herself small, unobtrusive. But Claire's presence grew larger, her comments sharper. This place is so outdated, she'd say, wrinkling her nose at the floral curtains Eleanor had sewn herself. We'll need to renovate once we're back on our feet. Michael, ever the peacemaker, would nod vaguely, avoiding his mother's eyes. Eleanor didn't mind the criticism of her taste. She could handle Claire's sighs over the old stove or the mismatched plates. But the dismissal of her place in their lives, that was different. It wasn't just about the house. It was about the years she'd poured into her family, the sacrifices no one saw. She'd worked nights as a nurse to pay for Michael's college, sold her mother's heirloom necklace to cover Thomas's medical bills. And now, to be told she wasn't real family. The words burned. That evening, Michael came home late, his boots heavy on the porch. Eleanor heard Claire's voice rise in the living room, sharp and insistent. We need to talk about the future. Michael, this house isn't working. It's too small, too old. We should sell it. Start fresh. Eleanor's breath caught. Sell the house. The thought was a physical pain, like losing Thomas all over again. She pressed her ear to the door, her heart pounding. It's Mom's house, Michael said, his voice low, uncertain. She's lived here her whole life. Claire laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Your mom. She's not even on the deed anymore. Is she? You said she transferred it to you years ago. Eleanor froze. The deed. She hadn't thought about it in years. Not since she'd signed it over to Michael after Thomas's death. A decision born of trust and grief. She'd wanted to secure his future, to give him something solid. But now, Claire's words twisted that act of love into something else, a weapon. She didn't sleep that night. Instead, she sat at the kitchen table, a cup of tea growing cold in her hands. The house was quiet, but her mind was loud with memories. She thought of the day she and Thomas had paid off the mortgage, dancing in the living room to a crackling radio. She thought of Michael's first steps, taken on this very floor. And she thought of Claire's words, each one a brick pulled from the foundation of her life. By morning, Eleanor had made a decision. She wouldn't confront Claire, not yet. But she wouldn't let this house, or her place in it, be erased. She stood, her joints aching, and walked to the attic. There, in a dusty box, were the papers she'd kept from the day she'd signed the deed over to Michael. She pulled them out, her fingers brushing against the yellowed edges. The truth was there, in black and white, and it was more complicated than Claire knew. Eleanor wasn't just a guest in this house. She was its heart. And if Claire wanted to challenge that, Eleanor would show her exactly what this house and this family meant. The attic smelled of dust and time, a quiet space where Eleanor's past lived in boxes and forgotten trinkets. She knelt by the old cedar chest, her knees protesting, and lifted the lid. Inside were relics of her life with Thomas letters, photos, and the legal documents she'd come for. Her fingers found the folder marked House Papers, and she pulled it out, her heart heavy with the weight of what she was about to do. The deed transfer to Michael had been her idea, a way to ensure he'd always have a home. But now, it felt like a betrayal she'd inflicted on herself. Downstairs, the house was waking up. Claire's voice floated up, bright and clipped, as she talked on the phone about paint swatches and real estate agents. Eleanor's stomach twisted. She clutched the folder and descended the stairs, her steps deliberate. She wouldn't let Claire's vision of a fresh start erase everything this house stood for. In the kitchen, Michael was pouring coffee, his face tired but kind. He looked up, surprised to see her so early. "Mom, you okay?" Eleanor forced a smile. "Just couldn't sleep. Thought I'd make some tea." She didn't mention the folder tucked under her arm. Not yet. She needed time to think, to plan. Michael nodded, oblivious, and left for work, leaving Eleanor alone with Claire. Claire breezed in, her phone still in hand, scrolling through listings of modern condos. "Morning, Eleanor," she said, barely glancing up. "We're meeting a realtor this afternoon. You should come. It'll be good to know what's out there." Eleanor's grip tightened on the folder. "This is my home, Claire. I'm not going anywhere." Claire paused, her eyes narrowing slightly. "It's Michael's home, technically. And we need something that works for us. You understand, right? You've had your time here." The words stung, but Eleanor kept her voice steady. "My time. I built this house with my husband. Every nail, every shinglight's ours. You don't get to decide when my time is up." Claire's smile faltered, but she recovered quickly. "That's sweet, Eleanor. But things change. Michael and I have plans. Big ones. This place, it's holding us back." Eleanor wanted to scream, to shake Claire until she understood what this house meant. Instead, she set the folder on the table and opened it, revealing the deed transfer papers. "You're wrong about one thing, Claire. This house isn't just Michael's. There's a clause in the transfer, a condition I added when I signed it over. Did he ever tell you?" Claire's brow furrowed, her confidence slipping. "What clause?" Eleanor didn't answer. She let the silence hang, heavy and sharp. before closing the folder. You should ask him. And maybe think twice before you talk about selling my home. The rest of the day was tense. Claire avoided her, retreating to the master suite with her phone, while Eleanor busied herself in the garden, pulling weeds with more force than necessary. The roses Thomas had planted years ago were still blooming, their petals defiant against the autumn chill. She wondered what he'd think of this mess, of their son caught between his mother and his wife. Thomas had always been the diplomat, smoothing over conflicts with a laugh or a gentle word. Eleanor didn't have his patience, but she had his stubbornness. That evening, Michael came home to a quiet house. Eleanor was at the stove, stirring a pot of soup. When he joined her, Claire said you two had a talk. He said carefully, about the house. Eleanor nodded, not looking at him. She wants to sell it. Did you know? Michael sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. She's been talking about it. Yeah. I didn't think she'd bring it up so soon. I told her we'd figure it out together. Together, Eleanor repeated, her voice soft but edged. Does that include me? Or am I just here, like she says? Michael's face fell. Mom, you know that's not true. Your family. This is your home. Then why does it feel like I'm being pushed out? Eleanor turned to face him, her eyes searching his. I gave you this house because I trusted you, Michael. Because I wanted you to have what your father and I built. But if you let her sell it, you're letting her erase us. Michael looked away, his jaw tight. It's not that simple. Claire's thinking about our future, maybe a kid someday. We need space. Money. I don't want to lose what you and Dad built. But I don't know how to balance it. Eleanor's heart ached for him, caught in the middle. But she couldn't back down. There's something you need to see, she said, retrieving the folder from the counter. She opened it and pointed to the clause she'd mentioned to Claire. When I transferred the deed, I included a condition. The house can't be sold without my consent, not while I'm alive. I didn't tell you because I never thought I'd need to. Michael stared at the paper, his expression unreadable. You didn't trust me. I trusted you, Eleanor said, her voice breaking. But I knew life changes people. I wanted to protect this place. For you and for me. This house is more than walls. It's us. Michael didn't speak for a long moment. Then he nodded, folding the paper carefully. I'll talk to Claire, he said quietly. We'll figure this out. Eleanor watched him go, her heart heavy but resolute. She'd drawn a line, and now she'd see where it led. The next morning, the house felt like a held breath. Eleanor woke early, her body stiff from a restless night. She'd heard Michael and Claire arguing late into the evening, their voices muffled through the walls. She hadn't meant to cause a rift, but she wouldn't apologize for defending her home. As she brewed coffee, the folder with the deed papers sat on the table, a silent reminder of the truth she'd unearthed. Claire emerged from the bedroom, her face pale, her eyes avoiding Eleanor's. Good morning, she said curtly, grabbing a mug. Eleanor noticed the tension in her shoulders, the way her fingers gripped the handle too tightly. Michael followed, looking worn, his usual warmth dimmed. We need to talk, he said, glancing between his mother and his wife. All of us. Eleanor nodded, sitting at the table. Claire hesitated, then joined them, her posture rigid. Michael took a deep breath. I showed Claire the clause. Mom. She wasn't happy. Claire's eyes flashed. You blindsided me, Eleanor, you let me think this was our house. Our decision. And now you're pulling this. It's manipulative. Eleanor's chest tightened, but she kept her voice calm. I didn't pull anything. Claire. I gave this house to Michael because I love him. But I never gave up my right to protect it. You called me not real family. You don't get to say that and then act like this place means nothing to me. Claire's mouth opened, then closed. For the first time, she looked uncertain. I didn't mean it like that, she said, but her tone lacked conviction. We need a fresh start. This house is falling apart. It's not practical. Practical. Eleanor's voice rose, sharp with emotion. This house held my family together through loss, through hard times. It's not just walls and a roof. It's where Michael learned to walk, where Thomas and I laughed and cried and built a life. You want to sell that? For what? A condo with no soul. Claire flinched, and Michael reached for her hand, but she pulled away. It's not about soul, she said. It's about what we need. You're clinging to the past. Eleanor, you're making this harder than it has to be. Michael's voice was quiet but firm. Claire, stop. Mom's right. This house means something. I didn't realize how much until now. I don't want to sell it not without her say. The room fell silent, the weight of his words settling over them. Eleanor felt a flicker of hope, but it was tempered by Claire's expression, resentful. Cornered. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping the floor. Fine. You two figure it out. I'm going for a walk. As the door slammed, Michael looked at Eleanor, his eyes tired. I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't know she'd push this far. I thought we could make it work. Eleanor reached across the table, squeezing his hand. You're trying. Michael. That's enough for now. But you need to decide what this house means to you. Not just to me. Or to Claire. To you. He nodded, his gaze drifting to the photo on the wall, the one of him as a boy, laughing with his parents. I remember that day, he said softly. Dad was teaching me to ride a bike. You were cheering so loud the neighbors complained. He smiled, but it faded quickly. I don't want to lose that. Then don't, Eleanor said. But you'll have to fight for it. Claire's not going to let this go easily. Over the next few days, the tension in the house grew thicker. Claire was polite but distant, her conversations with Michael hushed and private. Eleanor kept busy, cleaning the house, tending the garden, anything to keep her hands moving while her mind raced. She began to notice small things: Claire's notes about realtors, a brochure for a new development tucked under a magazine. It was clear Claire hadn't given up on her plan. One afternoon, while Claire was out, Eleanor found Michael in the garage, sorting through old tools. These were Dad's, he said, holding up a rusted hammer. I used to watch him fix things around the house. He'd let me hold the nails, even when I dropped them. Eleanor smiled, her heart aching. He was so patient with you. He loved teaching you things. Michael set the hammer down, his expression serious. I've been thinking about what you said. About the house. What it means. I don't want to sell it, Mom. But Claire, she's so set on it. I don't know how to make her see. Eleanor hesitated, then spoke carefully. You need to show her. Michael. Not just tell her. Show her what this place is. The stories. The memories. She doesn't know them because we haven't shared them. Maybe it's time we did. Michael looked at her, a spark of determination in his eyes. "You're right. Let's do it. Let's show her." That evening, Eleanor began pulling out old photo albums, letters, and mementos from the attic. She laid them out on the dining table, a map of their family's history. When Claire returned, she paused at the sight, her expression guarded. "What's all this?" she asked. "It's us," Eleanor said simply. "This house, this family. Sit with us, Claire. Let us show you." The dining table was covered with fragments of the past photo albums. A stack of Thomas's handwritten letters. A child's drawing Michael had made at 5. All edges worn soft by time. Eleanor sat at one end, her hand steady as she opened an album, while Michael sat beside her, his expression a mix of hope and nervousness. Claire stood in the doorway, arms crossed, her face unreadable. The air was thick with unspoken words, but Eleanor refused to let the moment slip away. "Claire," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "Come sit. You don't have to say anything. Just look." Claire hesitated, then pulled out a chair. Sitting stiffly, Eleanor slid an album toward her, open to a photo of the house when it was just a frame. Thomas standing proudly in front of it, his grin wide under a hard hat. This was 1975, Eleanor said. We were newlyweds. Barely had 2 pennies to rub together. Thomas worked construction during the day, and I took night shifts at the hospital. We built this place with our own hands. Claire's eyes flicked to the photo, then away. "It's a nice story," she said, her tone guarded. "But that was a long time ago." "It's not just a story," Michael said, his voice quiet but firm. He picked up a letter from the pile. The paper yellowed, but the ink still clear. "This is from Dad. When he was in the hospital, he wrote to Mom about how much he loved this house, how it kept him going. He said it was his anchor." Eleanor's throat tightened as Michael read aloud. "Ellie, when I'm gone, keep this house alive. It's where our boy will always come back to. It's where we're us." His voice broke on the last word, and he set the letter down, his eyes glistening. Claire shifted in her seat, her fingers tapping the table. "I get it," she said. "It means a lot to you. But we're not you, Eleanor. Michael and I have our own lives, our own plans. This house, it's not ours." Eleanor leaned forward, her gaze steady. "Then make it yours, Claire. You don't have to tear it down to do that. This house has room for your dreams, too. But you can't erase what came before. It's part of you, whether you see it or not." Claire's jaw tightened, but she didn't respond. Instead, she picked up a Polaroid of Michael as a toddler, sitting on the porch with a toy truck. "He was cute," she said softly, almost to herself. "He was," Eleanor said, a small smile breaking through. "He used to run around this house like it was his kingdom. That porch was his castle, the backyard his battlefield. Every corner of this place has a piece of him and of us." Michael reached for another album, flipping to a photo of his wedding day. He and Claire were laughing, their hands intertwined, the house's front door in the background. "This is us, Claire," he said. "Right here, in this house. We started our life together in this place. Doesn't that mean something?" Claire's eyes lingered on the photo, her expression softening for a moment. But then she pushed it away, standing abruptly. "I need some air," she said, her voice tight, and left the room. Eleanor and Michael sat in silence, the weight of the moment settling over them. Did we push too hard? Michael asked, his voice low. Maybe, Eleanor said. But she needed to see it. She needs to understand what she's asking us to give up. Over the next few days, Claire was quieter. Her usual sharpness dulled. She stopped talking about realtors. But Eleanor could tell she hadn't let go of her plans. One evening, while Eleanor was washing dishes, Claire approached her. Her arms crossed, but her tone less hostile. I looked at the deed clause. She said, "You really tied Michael's hands, didn't you?" Eleanor dried her hands, turning to face her. I protected my home, Claire. I gave it to Michael because I love him, but I didn't give up my place in it. You can't expect me to. Claire's eyes narrowed, but there was a flicker of something else, uncertainty. Maybe. You're making this about you, she said. But it's about us, too. Our future. Don't you care about that? I do, Eleanor said, her voice steady. But a future built on erasing the past isn't a future I can support. You want to build something new? Fine. But do it with us, not against us. Claire didn't respond, but she didn't argue either. She left the kitchen, and Eleanor felt a small spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, Claire was starting to listen. The next morning, Michael suggested a family dinner, something they hadn't done since Claire and he moved in. Let's make it special, he said. Like we used to. Mom. Remember those Sunday dinners? Eleanor smiled, her heart lifting. I remember. Your dad would carve the roast, and you'd steal the potatoes before they hit the table. Michael laughed, and for a moment, the house felt alive again, filled with the warmth of memory. They spent the day preparing. Eleanor baked bread. Michael grilled, and even Claire helped, chopping vegetables with a quiet focus. As they sat down to eat, Eleanor looked around the table, her heart full but wary. This was a step, but the fight for her home wasn't over. The dining room glowed with the soft light of candles, their flames dancing on the table where Eleanor, Michael, and Claire sat. The smell of roasted chicken and fresh bread filled the air, a reminder of the Sunday dinners Eleanor used to host when Michael was young. Tonight felt like an echo of those times, fragile but hopeful. Claire was quiet, her fork moving slowly through her plate, while Michael tried to keep the conversation light, telling stories about his childhood antics in the house. Remember when I tried to fix the porch swing? He said, grinning. I was what? 10. Thought I could make it go higher with Dad's drill. Ended up breaking the whole thing. Eleanor laughed, the sound warm but tinged with ache. Your father was so mad, but he couldn't stop laughing. He said you had his stubbornness and my bad ideas. Claire looked up, a small smile tugging at her lips. You two really built this place into something, didn't you? She said, her voice softer than usual. I mean, I can see why it matters. Eleanor's heart lifted, but she stayed cautious. It's not just the house, she said. It's what it holds. The love, the fights, the moments we thought we'd lose each other but didn't. That's what makes a home. Claire nodded, but her eyes were distant, as if wrestling with something unspoken. After dinner, she helped clear the table, a small gesture that felt like a truce. But as Eleanor washed the dishes, she overheard Claire and Michael in the living room, their voices low but intense. We can't keep living like this, Claire said. I know the house means a lot, but it's not practical. Michael, we need to think about our future, not your mom's past. Michael's voice was firm. It's our past. 2. Claire. I'm not saying we can't make changes. But selling. That's too far. Mom's right, this place is us. Eleanor's hands paused in the soapy water, her heart pounding. She wanted to believe Michael's resolve would hold. But Claire's determination was a force of its own. She dried her hands and joined them, her presence silencing their argument. Claire, Eleanor said, her voice steady. I know you want a future that's yours. I want that for you, too. But this house isn't holding you back, it's a foundation. You can build on it. Make it your own. Why does it have to be all or nothing? Claire's eyes met hers, searching, maybe even softening. I don't know how to do that, she admitted. This place, it feels like it belongs to you. Not me. Every corner is your story, not mine. Then let's make new stories, Eleanor said, her voice thick with emotion. Stay here. Make this home yours, too. I'll help you. We'll paint the walls, change the curtains, whatever you want. But don't ask me to let go of it completely. Claire didn't respond, but the silence wasn't hostile. It was heavy with possibility, a crack in the wall between them. Over the next few days, the house felt differentless, like a battleground, more like a place where compromise might take root. Claire stopped mentioning realtors, and one afternoon, she even asked Eleanor about the garden, how to care for the roses Thomas had planted. They're stubborn. Like him, Eleanor said, kneeling in the dirt beside Claire. They need love, but they'll bloom if you give them time. Claire's hands stilled on the pruning shears, her expression thoughtful. I'm trying, Eleanor. I need to feel like this is my home, too. You will, Eleanor said, her voice soft but certain. You just have to stay long enough to see it. That evening, Michael proposed a projector renovation. Small but meaningful. Let's update the kitchen, he said, looking between Eleanor and Claire. Mom, you pick one thing to keep, something that means the most. Claire, you choose what we change. We'll make it ours. Together. Eleanor's heart swelled. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. She chose the oak table, its grooves a map of their family's history. Claire, after a moment's thought, suggested new cabinets, modern but warm, to blend with the house's charm. They agreed to start the next weekend, and for the first time in months, the house felt like it might hold them all. But Eleanor knew the peace was fragile. Claire's heart wasn't fully won, and the deed's clause still loomed. A quiet power Eleanor hadn't fully revealed. She didn't want to use it, but she would if it came to that. For now, she'd give Claire time, hoping love and memory would do what words couldn't. The kitchen renovation began with a tentative energy, a dance of compromise and hope. Eleanor watched as Michael and Claire measured the space for new cabinets, their voices overlapping in a way that felt almost like harmony. She stayed on the sidelines, sanding the oak table to restore its shine, her hands moving with the rhythm of memory. The house hummed with activity, and for the first time in months, Eleanor felt a flicker of belief that they could all belong here. Claire was different now, still guarded, but less sharp. She'd started asking questions about the house's history. Small things like why the living room walls were painted sage green, Thomas's favorite color, or how Eleanor had chosen the rose bushes. Each answer was a thread, weaving Claire into the fabric of the home. But Eleanor knew the wound from Claire's words not real family hadn't fully healed. It lingered, a quiet ache. One afternoon, while sorting through old paint cans in the garage, Claire found a box of Thomas's tools. each one etched with his initials. She held up a chisel, her brow furrowed. He really loved this place, didn't he? She asked Eleanor, who was sweeping nearby. More than anything, Eleanor said. He used to say this house was his heart, and I was its beat. Silly. Maybe. But it made sense to us. Claire nodded, setting the chisel down carefully. I didn't get it before, she said, her voice low. I thought it was just stuff. Old stuff. But it's more than that, isn't it? Eleanor met her eyes, seeing something new: vulnerability, maybe even regret. It's us, she said simply. All of us. That evening, over dinner, Claire surprised them both. I've been thinking, she said, her fork paused midair. I was wrong to push so hard about selling. I didn't see what this house means not just to you, Eleanor, but to Michael. To us. I want to try to make it ours, too. Michael reached for her hand, his smile wide. You mean that? Claire nodded, her eyes glistening. I'm sorry, Eleanor, for what I said. You are family. I was scared. I think scared of being stuck in someone else's story. But I want to be part of this one. Eleanor's throat tightened. Her heart caught between relief and caution. Thank you, Claire, she said. That means more than you know. The renovation became their bridge. They painted the kitchen a warm cream, hung new cabinets, and kept the oak table as the heart of the room. Claire suggested adding a window seat, a place for their future children to read or dream. Eleanor sewed cushions for it, her stitches steady, her heart lighter. The house began to feel like a shared space, a blend of past and future. But the deed's clause remained Eleanor's secret weapon, unspoken but ever present. She didn't mention it again, hoping she'd never need to. Instead, she focused on the small victories: Claire's laughter as they planted new roses together, Michael's pride as he installed the cabinets, the way the house seemed to breathe easier with each passing day. Months later, the kitchen was done, a testament to their fragile new bond. At the housewarming dinner they hosted to celebrate, Eleanor looked around the table. Michael, Claire, and a few neighbors who'd known the house in its earliest days. The room was filled with laughter, the clink of glasses, the warmth of a home reclaimed. As the evening wound down, Claire raised her glass. To this house, she said, her voice steady. And to Eleanor, who showed me what family really means. Eleanor smiled, her eyes misting. She didn't need to reveal the clause. Not now. The house had spoken for itself, its walls holding their story together. She raised her glass in return, her heart full. To family, she said. All of us. The house stood quiet that night, its creaks softer, its warmth deeper. Eleanor lay in bed, listening to the familiar sounds of her home, knowing it was hers and theirs forever.